Hartwick. Frost.
Present.
You have a quorum.
All right. I would invite the Planning Commission and all those present to join me in the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I would now entertain a motion to excuse Commissioner Snyder, who is absent this evening.
So move.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
We have Garrett as well.
Oh, and Commissioner Garrett as well. Would you like to add Commissioner Garrett to your motion?
Commissioner Garrett, please add.
All right,
Still second.
and the second, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. We're now moved to the approval of the minutes from the February 3rd, 2026 meeting. Go ahead and take a look at those. They were kind of lengthy minutes here. I have one extremely minor thing, if anybody else has anything. My only thing, and this is, I am not offended in any way, but let the record reflect that in the site plan review, 440 Spring Street, my last name is misspelled. So it's spelled correct everywhere else, MC capital R-A-E, but then in the site plan review, we get a couple of, apparently we get a Christensen. Christensen is with an E on, right? Just a couple of typos in there. Is there a motion to approve the minutes with those amendments?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and it carries. Okay, thank you. The minutes stand approved. This is now our early public comment period. If you have something that you'd like to speak to the commission about now, you can approach the podium, state your name, state whether you're a resident of the city of Charlotte. Please keep your presentations to 5 minutes. The podium is now open. And the podium is now closed. We now move on to the approval of the agenda, which I guess we're more than halfway through at this point. But so we'd be looking at items 8, the commercial temporary use permit at 116 Lansing Street, the proposed zoning ordinance map and recommendation, as well as the late public comment, commissioner comments, and of course, an adjournment. Better have that on there. Any additions to the agenda? Any edits or comments about the agenda? If none, I would accept a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Motion to approve.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. All right, and then that takes us to our first action item, the commercial temporary use permit 116 Lansing Street. I'd invite the commission to take a look at their packet here. There is an application for a temporary structure permit. There is a small diagram indicating where that will be, as well as a memo from Mr. Tiger Fullerton, as well as the property lease. Tiger, anything further to add beyond the comments in the memo?
Nothing to add besides when we did receive the application, it was more than 30 days. We just had that corrected, so the lease may say something different. However, our application and what you're going to approve tonight is June 7th to July 7th, 30 days. Other than that, same exact location as last year. Police had no issues, fire had no issues. We're all good.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, please. So I know originally when this contract came before us, or this company came before us for the temporary use permit, I think this is the third year maybe that they've come before us. The original plan was they were to be in the front right corner, closer to the auto shop. And at that point, the veterinary slash now dispensary was empty and had been empty. Now that that's being utilized and in business and their sign is there any reason why we can't have them go back to the original place they were supposed to be anyway, so we don't block or hinder a business?
Is that coming from a complaint last year, or?
Not to the committee, no, or to the commission, no, just verbally.
Okay. Nothing I was aware, and this is the application that they turned in.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I guess it is somewhat related to that. There's no concern that it's that far enough back that it's going to allow people turning onto Lansing Street to have a clear view of their, out of the parking lot there.
No, we did have that conversation that there is no exact setbacks on here, but they assured that it would be in the same location, and we will inspect that as normal.
Nicole, do you want to propose an amendment to change the location of the tent, or we'll just see what happens?
I mean, how much trouble is it gonna cause? Is it really that significant of a, I mean, you're probably saying the same thing to me, but is it really, I don't wanna hinder any business. Businesses are struggling right now, whether it be a fast food restaurant or a dispensary. I don't wanna hinder anybody's business.
I think if we remember correctly, they actually came to the first time, they actually asked to be put on the agenda in that location, be moved. I think that was something to do with the Eagles parking lot at the time. I would recommend if you're gonna make that change, that we probably invite them to the meeting. Since it was at least the second, if not the third approval for this, I'd assured them that they probably didn't need to attend.
So I guess, well, I won't make a motion to amend anything at this point. If it becomes an issue and it's brought up again and brought to my attention, then we'll for sure try to see if we can amend it for next year, because obviously it's going to be a repetitive thing where they're going to come back every year, which is great. And then we'll see if we can move it to the opposite side of the parking lot.
Sorry, go ahead.
Or potentially just further back from the road, if your concern is.
Well,
signage.
yeah, so if you look there where the tent is, and you see the auto place there, is that Advanced Auto? It was supposed to go where those, on the right side of the parking lot, where those parking spaces are close,
Yeah,
up by the road.
but the point I'm making is, if the current concern you have is with signage of the building on the left there, then, another potential solution to that would be simply moving the tent further back.
I don't think they could, honestly, because their parking lot narrows as it goes backwards. And that would really hinder some of their parking spots, and I don't want to do that to them either.
Yep.
We didn't reach out at all to the adjacent business, did we?
No.
And so maybe just when this comes back next year, we can give them a call or shoot them an email or something and just be like, hey, if you have something to say about this, say it now or forever hold your peace, so that we can know whether or not this is an issue or not that we really need to consider.
Correct, and there was a public hearing done on the first and second time.
Yep.
This year, we figured, and we found in the ordinance, it doesn't require public hearing after it's been approved once.
Is there a motion to approve the temporary use permit? I would say as written.
Support. We have a motion and support over here.
Any discussion, the motion being considered? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the temporary use permit is approved. All right, this proposed zoning ordinance map and recommendation. This is probably going to be the meat of our meeting this evening. There's a few things here I want to point your attention to. So obviously, we've done a decent amount with this already, but we do have a new, basically, it looks like the city attorney, Mr. Revore, reviewed this, what I wasn't clear, is whether or not the changes that he indicated were simply made, like, once he made the recommendation, that became part of the proposal, or whether or not we have to, approve these changes as part of our recommendation, either en masse or one by one. Once he said this, is that now part of what we're approving, or do we have to go and approve these recommendations?
No approval to that. So just give you a quick kind of timeline here. And obviously, the zoning ordinance has been worked on over a year now. It's went through the several work sessions, obviously with the committee members, and then a full work session with the planning commission. Then it's went to the attorney for review. So now you guys are getting it back with his review. Furthermore from that, what we're looking for, if there's not a huge significant changes tonight, or something that needs to go back for further attorney review, is that you make a recommendation to the council for next Monday's meeting. I believe it's the 11th? 13th, sorry. 13th of April. That would be the first reading at city council, because this is an entire ordinance change. They would then schedule the public hearing for your meeting in May, which would be May 5th. You guys would hold a public hearing, and then you'd give a final recommendation to city council for their May 11th meeting, and that's when they could choose to adopt it.
Okay, I think it's worth looking at the revisions by the attorney, just so we can all kind of have an understanding of what those are. And a lot of it is just kind of pro forma stuff. I don't know if you had an opportunity to look at the actual ordinance with the changes made. Again, a lot of them are very just kind of, oh, there was a typo here, there was a misspelling here, and that was then changed in there. But you've got revisions for typos in Article 1 and Article 2. So in Article 3, it says regulated use and dimensions. Article 3 required revisions to ensure that the ordinance is in compliance with the state statute relating to group homes. And so I guess if we go to Article 3, which I'm not sure if anybody has what page that starts on. Probably not. That's Article 4, okay. Because when I go through the attorney recommendations, a lot of them aren't not like, they're not necessarily that he's saying this is the change that needs to be made. He's just saying, or he's saying this is wrong, right?
PDF, it's page 17 of 164.
Okay. So for example, at one point in page 15, it says this provision will not apply in the CBD district. And then it says, well, there's no district called this.
So that should be the central district.
Right, because that has been now returned commercial downtown, the CD. So again, it seems like just a typo, but are we, when we're approving the recommendation, we should be cognizant about what the resolution to the problem is. And presumably that would be to change CBD to simply CD.
From what I found in Article 3 with concerning the adult group homes, he's recommending and it's also in this Article 4 of the overlay. It's changing it from permit or by right of permit to the S classification or special.
And that's just to make the ordinance comply with how the statute reads?
I believe if that's what his notes are saying here.
Okay.
I'm referencing what I found in the.
Right. Yep, it talks about that on page 18. Yep, okay. Article 3 needs clarification as it references a district type that does not exist. We talked about that. Article 4, overlay districts. Article 4 required multiple revisions. First, revisions were required to bring the table in the article into agreement with the rest of the article. Additionally, Article 4 required revision to ensure that the ordinance is in compliance with the state statute relating to group homes. Further, the article required revisions for typos, the name of the state organization, and to the names associated with maps. Finally, citation revisions were required. And this is where there's kind of a comment in here where the original wording here, this is on page 23 of the revised PDF. The flood insurance study prepared under the guidance of the Federal Emergency Management Agency and dated November 26, 2010, and the floodway boundary and floodway map of the city community panel number, there's a big long number there, and the map index and profiles are hereby adopted, referenced, and hereby made a part of this chapter. And then the comment here is that Charlotte is under numerous floodway boundary and floodway maps. The proper names must be inserted here. I'm hoping that somebody knows how to do that, it's not me. I do not know what the proper floodway boundary and floodway maps are and how to cite them, but I'm hoping that somebody does and can make that revision and that we're confident in their ability to make that change.
Yeah, we can mark that one down and ask John. Most anything to do with flood, drain, that falls back to the county anyways.
Okay. And so I'm just gonna skip through the ones that are just typos. I'm gonna presume that those ones were all pretty much pro forma. They added a definition of data center in Article 7, which might be of interest to folks. Let's see if I can find that. You got it there? What page?
It's 147.
147, okay. Okay, so this, under page 147 of the amended proposed ordinance, data center, a facility primarily used to house computer systems and associated components such as telecommunication and storage systems, including backup power supplies, redundant data communications connections, environmental controls, and security devices, and then it was added in, data center use may also include an electrical generation facility. Which I'm guessing means, when we say an electrical generation facility, means germane to the operation of the data center, not you can just build a whole power plant and call it a data center. But that would be my reading of it. And required revision, citation changes. Okay, what does he mean when he says citation changes were required? There's several references to citation changes. I wasn't really sure what that meant.
I noticed that there's, as I was going through it, so like here, it says like MC, maybe LA, and they scratched the A off, and there were more,
What page was that?
oh, I just grabbed the page. I have no freaking idea what pages these are, 82?
Michigan compiled
Okay, so we're referencing the
I
wrong.
noticed a handful other ones that, if you go to page 85, there's a bunch of, this is like R125, and some of them are scratched off.
Okay, so I see, but in no case, this is, yeah, page 85, 4A. But in no case shall the open space and distance requirements be less than required under, and so then, yeah, changes were made. Okay, so this seems like he made the change, right? He found the correct citation for that law and put that in there and removed the incorrect citation. And so I think we could be satisfied that was made correctly, as certainly he would be the expert in that department.
The one thing I noticed is that I think the things that actually need addressing are yellow.
Okay, so things that are yellow are things that are,
Correct.
things that we have to come up with
Like where
something
it
new
said,
for.
Like that CBD doesn't exist, it was yellow.
Right, okay, so that, okay, that's interesting. So this could be, maybe we, since we know some of that stuff, we can put an amendment in there to fix those things, before we send it to the city for final.
Yeah, like for instance, kind of jumping ahead, page 107, it says no densities listed, and it's yellow.
Okay, so let's take a look at page 107 here. The planning commission,
I was gonna say, real quick, James, just to remember, because you guys got the revised clean version,
Yep.
which came from John, and then you also got the strikeout straight from the attorney. So just making sure that we're, the document that you guys should be looking at is the clean version. You can still reference the other one for the changes.
okay, so there is a version that was created that had those changes put into place.
To my understanding, yes, John
Okay.
put all the city attorney's recommendation or changes
Okay.
in place.
I didn't download that one.
Yep.
But I appreciate the fact that we saw both. You know, we could see what the attorney recommended and what John did with it. There's also one on page 8.
Page 8. So, because I didn't realize that, and so I don't have the clean one handy. Presumably, the densities were added in there. Maybe somebody can pull up what those were. Page 8. This one, I think, seemed, basically, it seemed pretty pro forma because he says, yeah, I can't change the table, but these are the changes that need to be made. Adult group homes should be P, group homes, adult homes should be P, and then children should be children. That's just a typo. If no one else sees anything super glaring, again, with the flood thing, we talked about that, then I think we can have reasonable confidence that the clean version reflects those changes as they should. I did have a question. So this zoning map that we got added in the airport approach zones, right? That was the major change there. Is this just basically airport approach zones regulate the height of structures and trees in those areas? Is that the major impact of the airport approach zones, or is there more to it
I
than that?
anticipated that question, so I had to do a little research just to make sure. So Zone 1 is called the runway protection zone. It basically limits about everything. I mean, that's the direct space right before and right after the runway. Basically is as essential as a no-build zone. Zone 2 is the approach zone, which extends beyond those points. Development is possible, heavy restricted. Again, this is just real quick. Zone 3, the transition zone, along sides of the runways in the approach zones. That starts getting your height limits. Typical uses would be industrial, commercial, some residential with limits. Moderate restrictions, especially in height. Zone 4, the horizontal zone, a larger area surrounding the airport at a set elevation. Normal development starts to become more feasible here. Again, height restriction is gonna be the big one. In Zone 5 is the minimal airport-related restrictions. That kind of opens the door for a lot of other things.
It is very difficult for me to tell, even with this full copy colored thing here. Okay, the only difference between Zone 1 and Zone 5 is the color of the hatching. That Zone 1 is gray and Zone 5 is black. I don't know, it seems weird to me that most of the airport seems to be Zone 5, except for the immediate areas. I mean, I understand, like, the immediate areas at the end of the runway, those have to be the most protected areas, because if an airplane overruns the runway, you don't want it running into a building. That would be bad. but it seems kind of weird that the like least restrictive zone would include most of the rest of the airport property. Although I guess not directly in the, none of these zones include the runway itself. I mean, I know that this isn't gonna happen, but the way that this reads, it looks like I could apply to, that there would be no airport restriction to be building a building on the runway itself. Again, which I realize is farcical, but it just, the zone hatching seems kind of weird that it's like most restrictive right on the ends of the runway, and then there's different stuff as in the approach areas, but then the airport area itself is the least restrictive of the,
Would that possibly be because it's regulated by other laws?
That's
such
entirely
regulating
possible.
How airports are set up?
that's entirely possible. I'm just not aware of what those are.
To your point though, until you point out that I had read this map as what is zone 5 being zone 1.
Right,
Because they are so similar.
because they're similar. Yep.
That is slightly confusing.
I don't know if there's another hatching option. I know that like when you get this granular, we've used most of the colors of the rainbow already. You know, and we've, you know, we're trying to put overlay things on there so that you can see that there's colors underneath, and then, you know, you can go diagonal, you can go up and down, you go left or right, you can go black, you can go gray. So I understand that we're kind of out of options maybe, but I do feel like the detail there is a little unclear.
What may help in the future here is we'll have multiple zoning maps that are available.
Right.
This is kind of putting them all together in a sense, where if you just want just the airport zoning overlay, that'll go over just the basic map.
And I'm guessing we really have no say in this, that this is controlled by people way up the food chain.
Hey,
from us, and-
that's correct.
And it is what it is, no matter what. Okay. I'm gonna just kind of open it up to the commission. If you guys have other comments on the zoning ordinance, this is kind of your time to speak up, because the only thing for me to do at this point would be to hear a motion to approve it. So we can have that motion be introduced here, and then we can keep you know, discussing and amending it. But if we're out of things to talk about, then we gotta vote at that point. So
Well, to put it on the table, Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to recommend to City Council the adoption of this proposed zoning. Excuse me. Rewrite.
all right,
I'll support that.
there's support. All right, and now we can, if there's any further discussion, I think maybe we'll just go down the table, and everyone can kind of say their piece if they got anything to say, and if you don't, you could just pass and we'll go through. I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to speak here, because this is probably the most important thing we do as a commission for like a decade to come. So we want to make sure that we do it right, and nobody's sitting on something that they wanted to say and didn't get a chance to say it. So Nicole, I'll start with you.
Mr. Chair, real quick, could the motion also include the zoning map, since that's a major change of part of the ordinance?
Would you be open to including the zoning map
Be
as
open
part
to
of your?
including that, please.
And I'll support that.
All right, so amended.
I'm okay with this. I just had the same concern that you did, because, I mean, it's bold lines and not bold lines.
Right.
and They're going the same direction, so yeah, that's a little more clarification, transparent, I guess, next time.
Cooper, I still have the book you gave me with all your things that you
it's from
cited. Now, I think some of these things may have been addressed.
Yes.
But is there anything that you wanted to bring up still?
I want to circle back to, did anyone find the densities? for
Yes,
the
it was
subdivision?
removed.
It's removed?
Yep, so it went back to, just the two sentences before that, and they struck the whole line, because it appeared that those first two sentences were enough to give enough of a definition of what they.
Okay.
What page was that?
I think it was 1, 5, 8. Hold on, there's Article 10.
James, can I borrow your book?
Sure. Yeah, if you want
Turn
to.
double check my work and go ahead and let you move on.
107.
107. So it now reads, the planning commission in making its review shall find that the following minimum standards are met. The maximum number of individual family dwelling units per acre throughout the entire site shall not exceed the dwelling unit density level. They just remove that,
Yeah,
that
so
whole,
blah, 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 where the site is located.
Mhm.
And then the densities, including roads, are as follows. That whole thing is gone.
okay. The maximum number of individual family dwellings per acre throughout the entire site shall not exceed the dwelling unit density level of the district in which the site is located. That's still there, or the entire subsection A is, read to me what it says.
Okay, so I haven't found it yet, but what I remember that it says is the maximum number of individual family dwellings per acre throughout the entire site shall not exceed the dwelling unit density level of the district in which the site is located.
Okay. And presumably, the dwelling unit density level is indicated somewhere else,
That's what I would believe. And I think that's one of those tables.
right? Dwelling unit density. Okay, that particular term appears twice. These lot area shall remain permitted, provided the dwelling unit density. Maybe if I just search density. Oh, no one would ever take me for dense, right? Okay, in page 21, lot 8 area per unit, density, the minimum lot area per dwelling unit shall be 750 square feet for mixed-use buildings and 1,000 square feet for all other buildings. I'm not sure if that is, because that sounds like it's talking about the structures themselves, where compared to what the original thing seemed to be citing was how many structures could you put on a piece of land, right? That was the
Maximum number of individual single-family dwellings per acre.
per acre, yeah.
Throughout the entire site shall not exceed the dwelling unit density level of the district in which the site is located.
Okay, limit residential development to low
It's
density.
2A under Article 10.
So on page 33, less than 25 people per acre. Well, that's people per acre, that's not buildings per acre.
Yeah, but 2A under Article 10, it says the maximum number of individual single-family dwellings per acre.
Oh, what page is that?
Well, I have a different, because mine's out of 164 and your guys' is, oh, maybe it is, okay. 116, try it, but it's Article 10,
Okay.
2A.
Yeah, that's what we just read.
Oh, yeah, that's,
But-
isn't
but-
that what you're looking for?
Well, what we're wondering is, what is that?
Oh, okay.
Right, like what the density is, how many per acre? Like if it says that, then it should say somewhere in here what that number is, right? How many dwelling units can you have per acre? Because what got pulled out was these densities are as follows, and then it didn't say anything about the densities. And so I think the attorney saw this and said, well, if you're gonna talk about densities,
Isn't it on page 33?
is it on page 33?
Try page 8. I think that's what the question is that you're getting to. So, for instance, in a residential area, permitted one dwelling, permitted duplex, 2 units, special use triplex, 3 units, and special use quadplex. So
This is close. This is the type of dwellings you can have. What the original thing seemed to say was that somewhere in this document, there is, so it would say you can have 6 houses per acre. Some number of single-family dwellings per acre that is the allowed density of construction. And then in the thing that was revised, right, it says these densities are as follows, and then it just stopped. And the comment that the attorney had was, what are those densities? Like how many dwellings per acre? The revision evidently was to simply remove that part that said these densities are as follows, but that didn't remove the question of what is the number of, you got it.
Yep, it's between, so in the new version, it's between page 13 and 14. So it talks about, because we're in the condo, so the residential multiple, so it says comment 4, see comment 4? And then it says, under comment 4, the total number of rooms, not including kitchen, dining, sanitary facilities, shall not be more than the area of the parcel in square feet divided by 1,200.
I still don't think that's it, because that's saying how much the dwelling can take up of the parcel size, but it doesn't say how.
Right, but then if I do the math on
Right.
that will then tell me if I can go, an acre divided by 12, and the footprint is so many square feet, I can only get 3 of those.
Okay. So while it's not necessarily expressly stated, one can calculate that it is in fact 3 dwellings per acre, that is the allowed density.
Yep, or whatever it would be. Yep.
I guess I'm curious,
It would be nice if it was just.
was a little bit
3.
clearer than, because I feel like that's like if you were going to do a housing development, that would be something that you would probably want to know is I've got 20 acres of land, how many houses can I put here?
At a certain point, will that come up to a group where if somebody approaches and is looking to build a certain type of home or areas, they approach the zoning board and get approval one way or the other?
Yeah, so what I would imagine, there might be a couple of ways that could look like, again, depending on how this is stated. But like, so if there was an undeveloped parcel that you wanted to develop, right? And so it was, what's a number that's easily divided by 3? 60 acres, right? You had a 60 acre, I don't even know if there is a 60 acre parcel that's undeveloped, but if you had a 60 acre parcel that was undeveloped, and you could come in and say, well, I want to put in, 150 homes, right? And you would say, okay, well, on a 60 acre parcel, 3 dwellings per acre, you could do 180, so 150 would be fine. But if they came in and said, we want to put 200 homes on the 60 acre parcel, then we would say, no, that's too dense of construction. That doesn't fit the densities indicated. But again, it's weird that it looked like they were going to say that, and then they decided not to say that, and then they're kind of saying it by a roundabout way that you have to do this whole series of math to do.
I think we might have an answer.
Okay.
You got the math real quick?
So if you look in your RN residential district, it says, I think in looking at it, the minimum lot size is 7,200 square feet. So take that, divide it by, 43,560, you come to 6.05. That's the most that you can put on that. So if you got a development of say 20 acres, you're probably looking at, 20 times 6 would be the maximum. What's that? Yeah.
But that's for residential neighborhood, not residential multiple. This is under a condominium section.
Oh, is it really? I'm sorry. Sorry. Well, let me,
So I do think it's there.
Yep.
I think you have to dig to get to it. It would be nice if the table just said, 3 per acre, or whatever, right?
Could we attach maybe just something that, not to, I guess we're passing the buck on this one, but just to tell council that we're a little unclear as to what this should be, and maybe they should give some attention to this language before they final approve it, or should we try to workshop this here and put something in?
No problem. No problem taking this to council that has a couple thought processes with it.
Yep.
And then if John wants to add his sense in, but again, we'll bring it back to the planning commission during the public hearing.
Right.
So that you can actually make a final decision on what recommendation you want to give to council.
Okay. Okay, then yeah, if we can have John just kind of take a look at that and make sure that, like we had this question and we didn't really know what the resolution there was.
And just so we're clear, it's the condominiums, units per acre is what you're looking at.
What was the original, place in the strikeout where he had brought this up?
It's Article 10, it's 2A.
Did you have the page number?
Well, it's the old version, so.
That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, it's 107.
107. Yeah, condominium subdivision densities. Yeah, Article 10, Section 2A. That just by taking out these densities, including roads, are as follows, which was the change that was made. That doesn't really answer the question of what is the density. So the original question that Mr. Revor had was basically that there are no densities listed. I think he was anticipating that the change would be densities would be added into that spot. But evidently, the change that was made was simply that sentence was removed, but that still doesn't really answer the question as to what the condominium density, allowed density is. So that's something that needs to be resolved. Or you know, or we could just remove that entire section and not have a limit on it. But if that's something that we want to keep as part of the ordinance, then we're gonna have to have an answer there, I think. Presumably one that is more straightforward than the math option.
So
Do you have anything else?
Oh, I've got a few things that seemed that,
Okay,
from my notes, so I can
go for it.
start at the front. So, looking at,
Do you have page numbers?
I don't have page numbers, that's the pain of this. Yeah, that's,
Can
I'm,
we also make a recommendation that the final copy of the ordinance have page numbers?
I think it does, the one.
Okay,
yeah, I printed off Mr. Revor's copy,
Okay.
and that is
Okay.
making this a little bit hard.
yeah.
So for the first part of it, my first note is table 82-611, minimum maximum number of parking spaces. This is just a formatting thing mainly, or language thing. We have in 82-611 parking requirements that we are removing minimum parking, right? So why are we including minimum parking in all the names in the table? And the parking reform, so like why are we, if we're removing minimum parking requirements, why are we continuing to use the language of minimum parking? So it's something that's carried over, or
That was 82 dash what?
82-611, parking requirements. And so it's in the chart and the number 1. Number 2, it's all calculating parking minimum maximums. But if we're setting it so that we're focusing on just having a maximum, why are we keeping minimum parking requirements in the titles and all the language?
So it looks like it's about page 45.
Yeah, I got 47 in the version I'm looking at. Yep, but. So, I mean, is this just about removing the word minimum? where
Yeah,
it appears?
it's, you know, as we're looking at
Right.
this, what, if we're trying to update this, what's the point of keeping minimum in the title,
Right.
in every
And
part
then
of
in every
this?
table heading going
Yeah.
beyond that?
Just so I'm clear, you're proposing that we remove minimum, it is not removed though currently.
Yeah, just removing the wording of minimum out of it.
There is not, the ordinance removed parking minimums. So there is no longer any parking minimums in the ordinance. However, the table headings and the section heading continue to say minimum/maximum. So I think because there is not a minimum, including the word minimum in the table heading and the section heading is misleading because it leads you to believe that there are minimums when there are in fact.
Confuse people.
And
Not.
section one is what outlines the remove in the thought process. I can understand having minimum in section one so that people know to look there, but then carrying over minimum, maximum in all the section headers is confusing. And like the notes I'd given James as a layperson previous was, me trying to understand, where I've spent a good amount of energy to understand our zoning codes and just trying to remove idiosyncrasies that are confusing.
If I understand it correctly, I almost think we need to remove the word maximum.
No, so we're moving from minimum to maximum.
Okay, so maybe I'm not seeing which table.
So the way that parking minimums traditionally have worked and what we've had is that we require, the zoning requires if you have a type of business, right? That type of business must build that many spots, right? And this has been largely getting removed out of zoning codes because it creates seas of parking lots that don't get used much. And which creates like water runoff and other problems, right? So in this, section one is recommending moving to a maximum base amount of spots, right? And removing the parking minimum structure, right? And so I'm just calling out language-wise is why are we keeping minimum parking requirements in all the titles?
Because I see like, so table 82-611, minimum, it actually should say minimum parking spaces, so like accessory dwelling units, 1 per dwelling unit. That's the minimum. It's not really a maximum.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like, why are we still showing, is that a minimum or is that a maximum? That's a good point. This table
It
doesn't seem aligned.
indicate. It says minimum/maximum, and then it indicates,
Yeah,
is that a minimum or is that a maximum? Or is it simply a recommendation? Because this is what it says at the very beginning of that section, right? Minimum/minimum parking. To minimize excessive areas of pavement that detract from the aesthetics of the city and contribute to high rates of stormwater runoff, this ordinance establishes a maximum number of parking spaces for each use. There are no minimum parking requirements. The Planning Commission may grant an increase of the maximum number of parking spaces if, and then it creates a process by which we might allow people to build more parking, which would suggest that the table in fact represents maximum parking.
which that's probably pretty low for a lot of these as a maximum. So should it be just getting that table getting removed, rebuilt?
And then, folks, first of all, I just want to state that I understand that there's frustration with like, we want to move on this. It's just the nature of a document of this length, that there are just things that get overlooked or just they need a second look-see. That's our job. That's what we're doing. So as tedious and as painstaking as this work might appear, and I know it's like, oh, can we just approve it and move on? Like, this is what our job as a commission is to figure this stuff out. And so I appreciate everybody's patience as we work through this, and I understand that sometimes it can feel like we're kind of grasping at straws or kind of searching through the dark to try to figure things out here. That is just the nature of this particular kind of thing.
But like the importance of something like this is calling out like parking minimums often are something that is very easily overlooked in zoning ordinances, and they essentially dictate what businesses can fill an existing building by right. And so when you have misalignment or ambiguity, it can really hamper how we utilize the properties in our community.
If we miss something, Tiger, on here, and it gets overlooked, what does it take to go back and change that? Does it not happen until,
You basically have, so, again, just because you're recommending to council, it's only to the first hearing. Then you guys are still gonna have the public hearing. You can make any changes you want based on public input or your own.
Well, that's, I mean, I appreciate, like James said, going through it all. I'm wondering if this shouldn't almost be some homework and we should dig a little deeper at home and see if we find things, kind of like we do our agendas now, see if there's any problems with the minutes, that type of thing.
Yeah, and just confirm with the city manager there, but we can reference these items to look at, but we would recommend still that we move forward with it. And again, you may, this document hasn't been out to the public yet. You very well may get multiple changes.
We are not actually approving it. We're
No.
just moving forward to go
No.
to,
And truthfully, again, it comes back to city council for actual approval, but it's relied upon the planning commission for the recommendation.
Okay, that was
So-
my question. Thank you.
So for the flaws that we find though, how is it that as a commission, what is our role and purpose here? Is it to review this publicly of the discussion? Is it to do our homework and send notes separately? And how do things like this get worked out in the end for this city council to approve or change or deny?
And typically, just because this is kind of the first actual meeting that you got the chance to look at it, I think you attended the work session, but you're kind of in a little bit different
Yeah.
spot in a sense. Most of the planning commission members have had the better part of a year to hear the committee members and so on. So to not delay this, because we're kind of in that transition point, this is a huge transition from where we're at now to where we're gonna go. If the majority of it is in the right direction, and that's what you feel, that's where I'd recommend that recommendation. However, yes, in the next month, that's your last chance for the fine tooth comb right now. However, this document is never gonna be perfect. It will never be perfect for the city of Charlotte. It'll never be perfect for an individual. We will be able to make changes later, but because there's so many changes in this one time, I think it was probably since 1990 or 91 that there was this big of a change. So, food for thought in a sense, but this isn't by no means the end to change anything on this document before you recommend it to council for final approval, but it's at least to get it out there to the public.
Yep.
And that has to be done at some point.
So can I suggest that we can kind of create a conditional approval here, where we're gonna say, we, in general, we like what we've got here. Here is a list of things that we think are still in need of some review and revision.
Absolutely. I wouldn't even give the full list in a sense, because again, this is just for the council's sake of a first reading, that's gonna come back to you as a public hearing. They're gonna take the recommendation on that meeting, or you may even push that one out farther, based on what comes from that public hearing.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I would be comfortable, and we've done this in the past, of proceeding ahead as you're discussing, Tiger, with the proviso that you, as kind of the staff expert, are able to articulate to the council. Planning Commission had a couple of issues they think warrant further scrutiny or may come out in the public hearing process, and that way the process moves, but we're also faithful to what the commissioners are saying about issues of concern or question.
Because it's, the issue is who does the work of fixing the details, right? And like, we can do the work right now, but we might be here for a really long time if we do that. Or perhaps a lot of the stuff can be handled by John, and he can go in and look at it, but he needs to know where to look, right? He needs to know and say, hey, we don't know what this means. Parking maximum, minimum, there's a table, is that a maximum, is that a minimum? If it says it's a maximum, seems like it's kind of weird to be a maximum. And if we just say like, these are areas in need of review, then he could present to council a list of recommended amendments to say, the planning commission approved this, But with these areas of concern, these are my recommendations for how we amend the recommended ordinance to fix those issues. And then they can, you know, look at those and pass them en blanc and get the whole thing fixed up that way. Or if there's things that they want to have more scrutiny on, or we want to have more scrutiny on, we'll have that thing. I'm worried that if we don't have some kind of list of these are the areas in need of review, no one will ever know to go back and look at those things.
Nope, we're making a list, and that's what we'll approach John about this.
So we have the condominium densities, we have the parking maximum and minimums. Cooper, I think it's still your floor here if you've got other stuff.
I do. I'm going through and noticing it seems like a lot of the comments I'd made to you previously are still existing concerns. So going to, well, I do have a 82-304 Schedule of Regulations. Or 82-305 notes to the schedule. For all uses permitted other than single-family residential, the setback shall be the height of the main building and the setback required. My question is, why is single-family residential being called out differently than residential multifamily and such like that?
82 dash what?
82-305 notes to the schedule, section 2 of the notes. And it's dealing with setbacks allowances from property lines. And so my concern here being, as we're going through and updating what the residential districts are, I think this may have just been missed, or I'm questioning why single family is being called out differently than as we are allowing by right residential multi in more spaces and like ADUs and things like that. And do you want me to just go through and to help form the list, or
Well,
I'm just
I
wondering
at
how
least
quickly
wanna,
you want me
I
to
at
move
least want
through
to look
this?
at it. I'm sorry, I was
Yep.
still writing down the parking thing. So refer to me to the, where it calls out the single family separately.
82-305 notes to schedule, section 2, and again, I'm using Revor's copy here.
I
Other than
believe,
single-family residential.
I believe that the reason that was the case was because this was something that came up in the work session where we wanted to remove setbacks for single-family residential. To basically, this had to do with infill development, right? So if that you had a street and there was a empty parcel that you could build a dwelling that would be equal to the existing average setbacks on the street and didn't have to conform to the normal setbacks.
And that's wonderful, but I'm just wondering why is it, if there's two families living in that house,
Right,
does that all of a sudden not apply?
right,
And that's why I'm calling out there, because I agree with the general
right.
point of that section, but
Well, and I
it
think
seems
right.
limiting.
The point is well taken because there's several areas in the zoning area where whether there's one family or two families living in the house, it could be the same dwelling.
And-
it could be the same structure. It just configured differently.
And importantly, especially with infill developers, like the incremental development lines typically is talking about like, which their focus is infill development. Does it pencil out? How do we break a single occupancy space up to multiple to be able to make that developable space? So if our goal is to make it so that we can be doing better infill, we should be looking into making sure, especially since I think here is like up to triplexes by right in the residential districts. If that's our goal, like how do we make that language align?
Maybe maybe what the language should say is just for all zones other than residential zones. That's the setback requirement, and then the residential zones are what we approved
I'd agree with that.
separately.
Yep.
So again, we can bring that up as a question, is, because when they say single family isn't a zone, right? It's a use permitted within a zone.
Yep.
But within a zone, there might be, when you build the building in a residential area, you don't necessarily, you might have an idea of what it's going to be, but you don't necessarily know for, time immemorial what that use is going to be, because it can switch. And then all of a sudden it is or it isn't within the setback. So I would say, so our question then is, this is 82, 305, 2. Should this reference permitted uses or all
And
residential?
my next note of concern is also in 82-305. It is section 10. No building shall be closer than 50 feet to any adjacent residential district or any major thoroughfare. My question here being is, so is this essentially saying that wherever a zone is abutting against a residential district, you can't have a house within 50 feet, or a building within 50 feet of that? And to what end? Why are we doing that?
What's the code number again?
That won't apply unless it has that specific footnote. So,
Okay,
looks like commercial corridor,
okay.
IRO.
82 dash.
Gotcha, so this references a CC development only, right? So this is kind of like strip mall, fast food type development. We wanted to create a buffer in
Okay.
that zone to residential zones.
I see the note in the
Yep.
schedule at this point.
Yep.
Okay, thank you that's my ignorance.
Yep, nope, that's why we're here.
Next one would be in the same section, section 7, or in the same 82-305. Section 7 and 12 both seem to be governing off-street parking in the front yard. Just from my perspective, it seems like they're overlapping with each other.
Off-street parking should be
I wish I had the page numbers, I'm sorry.
15, 16.
on the old version. Yep. It almost is like, these are like duplicate provisions.
Yeah, and that's,
They are-
7 again is commercial and the 12 is
okay.
industrial.
I was gonna say, that's the difference. Again, it's just a footnote that relies directly back to one of the districts.
Okay,
So it's not that footnote covers all. It's just that district that it applies to.
Gotcha. Okay.
referring to the schedule itself, okay. And so is then 7 specifically commercial and what, like, my recommendation is there a way to have language in each of these referring to which district they're referring
If
to
you
there?
go back to the schedule 82-304, that's where they are. So
Okay.
7 is strictly commercial and 12 is strictly industrial.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you gotta go back to the chart and then see which footnote that refers to.
That's totally easy to understand.
So maybe if we had a recommendation, it would be that the notes to schedule should specify the zone.
Yeah, or at least for that parking one where
Yeah.
there's overlap, or potential overlap, and trying to understand it. So my next note gets away from the schedule. It's 82-611. Oh wait, no, sorry, that's the wrong one. We already covered that. 82-630 for non-motorized transportation. I just want to call out that in the description here, we are still using on lines 213, R1-R2 and RT. I do believe that's the old zoning reference. It looks like that was missed. My next note jumps forward to 82-708, which is bed and breakfast. My concern here is that it seems to be that we are drastically regulating this differently than how we are regulating hotels. Specifically in section B of this, such dwellings shall be located on state trunk line routes for bed and breakfast, but then for hotels, which I believe is 82-716, that's not a portion of it.
What was the 82 dash what?
For bed and breakfast,
Yeah.
or bed and breakfast is 82-708.
79.
Okay. I'm sure part of that was that the bed and breakfast is allowable in residential zones, probably.
Okay.
That would be my presumption, just because of the nature of bed and breakfast tends to be a residential dwelling. That the bed and breakfast is something that's allowed in a residential zone, as opposed to a hotel, you know, and you can imagine, like, if somebody started a bed and breakfast next to me, and I'm on Lawrence, so I'm on a state trunk line highway, I'd feel differently about that than if they bulldoze my neighbor's house and put a Holiday Inn.
So here's my concern with it, though. Where do Airbnbs fall in this? And the Airbnbs that already exist in our community? That's the real
Right.
impact on it, and that's
Right.
why I flagged this as a concern.
Is there a specific section on short-term rentals?
Well, Airbnb is air bed and breakfast.
Right, so
is this
is
the
an
section, or is there a
Airbnb
separate one?
Is it a bed and breakfast, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the definition of bed and breakfast? Is that defined?
Yeah,
in the
because
glossary?
I'm not I'm not sure on that.
Let's see. Yes, bed and breakfast operations, a use which is subordinate to the principal use of a dwelling unit as a single-family dwelling unit, and a use in which transient guests are provided a sleeping room and board in return for payment. I would think an Airbnb fits that definition.
So my recommendation is we remove the trunk line requirements in this, since, to my knowledge, there's already Airbnbs in this town that aren't on trunk lines. And I'm not sure if anybody else in the community has heard about any nuisance complaints on this, but it doesn't seem like there have been.
I just have a question, James. Are we completely sure on that? Because, I mean, we've been to an Airbnb that you literally got a bathroom in a room, and then we've been to Airbnbs that it's the whole entire house.
Right. I mean, again, I've been wrong before when asked to interpret legal language. I'm not a lawyer. I don't have legal training.
And I'm not thinking you're wrong. I just
Right.
want to confirm so that we're
Right.
not, we're on the
Or do
same
we,
page.
or do we have a, is this something that needs
We
to
have
go on
an-
the list of please?
Right.
Please
Right.
come back to us. about
Come
it?
back to us and say whether or not bed and breakfast includes air bed and breakfast. I mean, I guess, what's the difference other than perhaps with a bed and breakfast, you put a sign on the front of the house, right? Everybody knows that it's a bed and breakfast. An Airbnb, you know.
Wouldn't know
Or is the
driving by.
question that should we have a short-term rental
Right,
section in
section.
here, or do we? Because I know from speaking to different Airbnb operators, that are making investment in our community, there are residents of our
Right.
community, they feel like they are operating in a gray zone, which doesn't
Right.
make anyone comfortable, right?
Yeah, and I guess this is a use which is subordinate to the principal use of a dwelling unit as a single-family dwelling unit, which suggests that, I guess, if you're not living there, then it's not a bed and breakfast as defined by the definition, right? So a use which is subordinate to the principal use as a single-family dwelling unit. So that means that the principal use is single-family dwelling unit. There is a family, loosely defined, living in that place, and that then they are allowing other people to stay there for money. If there's not, I guess, a family living there, then the use, and if the primary use of that is then as a short-term rental, but there's no one living there permanently, then I guess I'm gonna reverse myself. I'd say I don't think that fits the definition of bed and
Okay,
breakfast.
so then 2 points then. One, why does it matter that it's on a trunk line if it's with a family?
Right.
And two, should we have a section for short-term rentals and do we? And I'm not aware of one of those sections. And again, it might be due to my ignorance from just coming into this.
The only real reference, that's interesting, okay. There's a definition of motel, a series of attached, semi-detached, or detached rental units containing a bedroom, bathroom, and closet space. Units shall provide for overnight lodging and are offered to the public for compensation and shall cater primarily to public traveling by motor vehicles. This definition does not include apartments. So I guess I don't think that really fits the definition of Airbnb.
No.
And then there's,
And I'll note, motels don't have to be on the trunk line.
right, but
Which
right.
again, to the section B of the bed and breakfast, on that part, why are we requiring them to be on a trunk line?
The other portion of it that kind of references a little bit is actually the bicycle parking requirements on page 5482-620, in which it says bed and breakfast and rooming homes. The only thing it says there is that there should be one bicycle parking space for every 3 lodging rooms. I don't know if that's different than lodging units. But that's kind of an interesting question. And some of this, you're never going to be able to write a ordinance that fits every conceivable situation.
But the Airbnb and this short-term rentals technology, as Tiger pointed out, this was last overhauled in 1991. That did not exist then, and so that's where should we be putting language in since this is our opportunity to do so.
I guess I have a question, maybe if Tiger could answer this, or even if our city manager could answer. Are current Airbnbs within the city required, number one, to register as an Airbnb? And if I was to drive around the city, which I do multiple times every day, I couldn't tell you what an Airbnb was in our town.
No, we have no business registry in a sense like that, as long as it's zoned for that. And if we do get a complaint, that would be the only time that we'd investigate.
So I technically could go home and turn my residential home in a neighborhood into an Airbnb tomorrow.
It would have to be a conditional use.
Okay, so
And
they
that's-
do have to come before and get a conditional use permit.
And that is, same with this zoning ordinance as well. It's
Okay.
special use, same as conditional use, it's just,
With
it's an
that,
S.
with that conditional use permit, do they have to get permission from the neighbors to have that as well? Kind of like the chicken ordinance?
Be no different, it would have to have a public hearing and everything.
Okay.
So right now, from what I'm hearing is, through this process, there has to be a public hearing in order to open Airbnb in this town. And it doesn't seem like there's any clear guidance on that in the zoning regulation. That's the.
No, I would agree with you, is again, bed and breakfast to me is historically what a bed and breakfast is. It's somebody's home that they open up to the public, in a sense, travelers, whoever it may be. The Airbnb that you're referring to is a short-term rental. So I think that should be specified, and that'd be a John question, but that might be an actually section that's added in.
Yeah,
And that's just my
clarification
suggestion
on
for the list.
short-term rentals, Airbnb needs to be clear, because, I mean, I've been on the planning commission for 6 years. I don't remember us ever having a conditional use hearing for a short-term rental, and yet I'm sure there have been short-term rentals that have been established in the past 6 years. So, it's, somebody is not doing what they should be doing.
No,
All right,
I
Jeff's
agree
turn to
for
people right now.
transparency, we need to,
Yeah.
But, and for how to make it so that we can be providing guidance for how to have these businesses in our community that are providing a service, or, is it, do we not want to? the MEDC has put out information on how to go one way or the other. Typically, a lot of communities in high tourist areas find it where they're trying to reduce the amount of them or like regulate how they're being used. Whereas a lot of communities in the central part of Michigan tend to see this as like adding capacity for the travelers coming through the community. And I believe that would be more of a Charlotte issue. That's why it's on my radar as a concern.
So I think we're in agreement that there should be clarification on short-term rentals. In terms of the trunk line thing, I don't know, I mean, we could, that seems like that's something that we're gonna have to get public hearing and come back and look at it later if we want to make a change there. All right, keep going.
I think this is the last one I have. Article 10, 82-1001, condominium subdivision. Trying to understand why this is calling out single-family detached dwellings for condominiums versus 1001. It's the very first thing, section 1. And then, I'm just trying to, again, understand why it's calling out single-family detached dwellings.
Condos can still be single family, or they could be more duplex style or plex style.
Yeah, so my question being is this excluding duplex and triplex or condominiums, or is it, like, why is it singling out single-family detached specifically? Again, this may just be my ignorance, but it was the last one I had on there.
Which section on there? So I'm
Section 1, the very
the intent of the
first.
section is to permit the development of single-family detached dwellings by site planning the layout of individual dwellings, streets, and open space. To accomplish.
Is it just because it's referring to condos as the individual unit, and so that a condo development would be multiple of these, and therefore each individual unit is a single family? And so then I'll note it in my understanding.
It seems to me, my understanding of the intent of this section is to create a more truncated process for the development of a single condominium within a single, like a detached dwelling style neighborhood. So like if I wanted to, again, we're talking about infill development or perhaps like home remodeling or something like that. If I wanted to say, okay, I want to create a condo from this house, there is a different process to follow that I think is supposed to be more truncated to allow that process to operate more like the development of a single-family home than the development of a, hey, we're building 60 condos here, this is what this is gonna look like. I'm not 100% sure if I'm reading that right, but that seems to be the intent. So I guess if we looked at 82-1310, which is a second section that it references there, that's not what I expected to say.
Notice. The reason, again, why I'm concerned about this is this going to allow for if a building, wanting to go through this truncated process, are we trying to limit to just a single family, or in the nature of the zoning update where we're allowing more duplexes and triplexes by right, is this something that should be part of this? Because again, to your point, in your interpretation, it seems like a very big difference between 1, 2, and 3 versus 60, right? And that's where, for like infill development and incremental improvements, 3 is much more economical than a single unit development-wise. I swear that's my last note.
One-family residential districts. So again, I think the contradiction here is that in the one-family residential districts, well, there is no such district, right? There is no such zone.
And there used to be.
Right.
But
The site planning of individual single-family dwellings may be permitted after.
Just add something, though, it's not uncommon to have single-family detached units within a a development of which they're paying homeowner association fees. They've got some standards related to landscaping, lighting, park maintenance, some of the other amenities that go with it. So there may be a circumstance where this is clearly applicable, given the market conditions. So it's not uncommon.
Yeah, and my question and concern there is this limiting or is it just a language thing?
Now, I would have to look through the rest of it, but I can almost assure you there's a lot more flexibility with even mixed type of housing within a development, where you see some cases where there's single family, then you have 2 units and then maybe even apartment complexes. I mean, it's just, I'm sure it's probably in there, knowing John.
Yep.
Tiger, the residential area out on Van Sickle, when you first turn off of Cochrane there, are those considered, those are called condos, aren't they?
Yes,
And those are single-family dwellings.
some of them are, yes. So again, a lot of this falls back to, and go back to your regulated use table, but one dwelling is a permitted use with an asterisk there in an RN district. It's also a permitted use in an RM district. Where you get down to like the triplex or quadplex is a special use in the residential neighborhood district. In the residential multi, is actually a permitted use. So again,
And so my question and concern there is like by us saying single family, is that making this condominium process, the truncated process, not able to be done if it's for more than a single unit, right? And that's the limit of my concern with it.
understand your question, and that's what I think, just a clarification.
Yep,
Could
thank
be an easy typo, but as the city manager stated, that's not limited. It's just a matter of how that's worded.
I've just made a note here to say what is the intent of this section, and hopefully we can get an answer on that by John at some point. All right,
I'm done. Sorry.
Commissioner Snyder?
Okay, I just have one question. On the map, I noticed that we have different areas that are considered contaminated, and it's brown something,
Brownfield?
brownfield, thank you. And on the map, it's just under commercial downtown, and I couldn't even see where it is on the end of Sumter, or the apartment complex. With the last meeting. Should that be separated? I mean, it doesn't show it because it's not exactly commercial, because right now it's a contaminated situation, and I know they have to follow certain state laws.
So anything to do with brownfield does not directly relate to the zoning use. So this is just a zoning use map, where if it was part of a brownfield district or an area, that would be a separate from the zoning.
The brownfield development map is like a separate overlay
It's
map.
separate from a regular zoning.
Yeah. Yep. It's not that, if you had, I guess, you had an area that was a brownfield development, whatever you wanted to develop there would be subject to different regulations or perhaps different incentives, as this the case sometimes is with those developments. But the permitted use would still be whatever it says on here, right? So if you wanted to do a brownfield development, cool. If it's commercial, it's gotta be if it's zoned commercial, though, it's still gotta be commercial. You can't build a factory in a place zoned commercial just because it's a brownfield development. It is whatever, the use is whatever the map says.
Okay, that was my only question.
Commissioner Barrett?
I just had one question really for Tiger. At the working session on the zoning code that we had at the fire station, there were a number of ideas brought forward by the commissioners. And I know John was taking pretty copious notes. I just want to, I guess, get your assurance that he included those in what he sent to the city attorney. And are you aware of any of those ideas that may not have survived the attorney markup?
Nothing was passed on to me. Selena kind of was heading that division up, or that area up at that particular time. But at least of my glance through this, I've seen the majority of the changes. I did swear that we talked about short-term rentals at one time. It could have been in one of the previous committees or in that work session, but I was actually surprised not to find it in here.
Okay. Appreciate your sharing that. Thanks. That was really all I wanted to know.
Commissioner Blair?
I'm good.
I just have a question. I'm kind of new too. I know this has been brought up and has been to the lawyer already for the changes. Now it's coming back to us for approval to go back to a public meeting, correct, after it's approved by the city council. And then once it comes back from the city council, there's a public hearing where people will be able to voice what's going on, if they have any questions, concerns. And then at that point, do we approve it again to go back for final approval?
Yes, so the planning commission in this case, because it's a ordinance, a city ordinance, the city council has full authority over the approval of a city ordinance. In this case, with the zoning ordinance specifically, it's the planning commission's recommendation. That's what they're going off of. They typically comb through it themselves, and they'll recommend to the planning commission maybe a change or something, but the authority to provide a document sits back with the planning commission, and that's where it's been for the last year plus. Moving forward, how the city adopts an ordinance is 2 readings. A first reading, which schedules a public hearing, and then a second reading to adoption. If it is adopted, then it takes 20 days to go into effect. However, because the planning commission kind of holds this document, the city council schedules the public hearing to happen during a planning commission meeting. And then your final recommendation from there is what they take in consideration for the actual adoption of the ordinance at the second hearing. Excuse me, the second meeting.
Kind of seems like we're nitpicking it now, and there's gonna have to be more nitpicking after the public meeting when they have recommendations before a final approval would be placed. So kind of like never-ending process before it never gets turned into city council, because we'll be going over it so many times, waiting for everything to be perfect.
Potentially.
I believe that's why Commissioner McCray was recommending that we, still recommend this to city council with the caveat of here are the list of concerns that we'd like to see from our consultant to be able to have it that way. So to your point, it still moves forward to the next round of nitpicking while still getting the improvements from the process that it's going through.
My opinion that this would be better off having this discussion at the next meeting, once the public has come in, and then we'll see any other changes or questions we had at that point. This has already been through the lawyer and everything else in the changes. It's gonna be better to approve it and then do a discussion afterwards.
I agree, and for the sake of the commission, we have the list that you kind of gave. I got the page numbers, a quick version of the question that you're asking. Mr. Chairperson, if it works for you,
Yeah.
we'll put that list together. I'll send it to you to just take a glance at. We'll get that to John, we'll get the exact answers, and then we'll distribute that back to the whole commission.
Yeah, so I think what I'm gonna propose we do, because we still have the motion on the table. We've been discussing the motion to approve it. That in a moment, that we're going to vote to recommend it. And provided that passes, not that I'm, trying to influence people's vote one way or the other. But if that was fortunate enough to be recommended, then that goes to city council along with our list of concerns. And then, Commissioner Barab kind of passed me a note, and I think he's spot on. When we do this with the public hearing, we got to have John here. That's going to be essential for us to be able to, because it's kind of like, it's like layers of filtration, right? Like we had one filter, then another filter, and then today is another filter. And then eventually we'll try to distill this down to as pure, exactly what we want it to be as possible. It'll never be perfect. There's always a coffee ground in my coffee somewhere, right? But that we try to make improvements at every step. But I think that just to kind of make sure that our concerns have been satisfactorily addressed and to make sure that we can address any concerns that we might have on the spot, it'll be really important when we have our public hearing for John to be there. I don't think that we can make a final recommendation at a public hearing unless he's present to answer questions. That being said, so maybe we can just kind of compare notes here. So this is my list, and you can tell me if it's the same list that you have. Review the condominium densities, review the parking maximums and minimums, the 82305, section 2, should this reference permitted uses or residential zones. Notes to schedule 82305 should specify zone, like that was kind of our question there. 82630 references the old zoning codes. We wanted a clarification just on short-term rentals in general. What's the rule? Is that addressed in here specifically? And then 82-1001, what is the intent of that section there? So with that list of kind of areas of concern to be forwarded to John and council, is there any more discussion before we move to vote on recommending this zoning ordinance to council? Seeing none, let's take a roll call vote on this.
Frost,
Aye.
We're doing yes or yea or nay?
Yay.
Hartwick?
Yay.
Lester? Christensen?
Yes.
Bliven?
Yes.
Barrett?
Yes.
McCray?
Yes. All right, the zoning ordinance stands recommended to council.
Snyder? Sorry.
My sincerest apologies. That pause was a little bit, I just jumped right in. I'm so sorry. Okay. The ordinance stands recommended. Thank you all again for your patience. We are now going to go to late public comment. This is supposed to be 5 minutes. If you have a statement, you can approach the podium, state your name, say whether you're a resident of the city of Charlotte. Late public comment is open now.
It is on music. All right, Amanda Thompson, Director of Helping Hands Food Pantry, not a resident of Charlotte, but a long time growing up here. I just want to say thank you. It is a thankless job, and you guys are all up here volunteering your time, your energy to support and uplift this community. So I just say thank you. If you're ever in the town and you want to come and see what you approved last year for our building, we're well underway with the expansion and construction. I welcome you out to come and see what we're doing. Thanks. Have a blessed night.
Thank you. Other public comment? Seeing none, the public comment period is closed. Commissioner comments, and I'm trying to, I had this. Commissioner Garrett sent essentially what I'm going to interpret as commissioner comments here, because she sent us an email basically with her feelings on some stuff, and it seemed like this was the appropriate time to mention that. Of course, if I can't find that now, that would be just typical, wouldn't it? It's gotta be one of these. Yes, okay. My notes for Tuesday, this is from Kelly Garrett. My notes for Tuesday's meeting. I have no changes to the March meeting minutes and support their approval. I support the Wizards Firework temporary location request and cited location. The city attorney's revisions to the zoning ordinance except the violation section, see minor. Regardless, I am in favor of moving forward with his proposed changes, and I have nothing to add to the proposed zoning map. What I was interested in and saw on Facebook that was going to be addressed at this month's planning meeting. So she's saying the quarry, but that was the Eaton County Planning Commission.
Correct, so that was answered.
Not-
And she, yep,
It's outside of the city limits.
Correct.
It's not germane to us.
that's correct.
Maybe I'll just email her back and let her know, like.
I took care of it.
You took care of it? Okay. So I'm not gonna worry about that, because that's not really germane to our area of administration here. Are there other commissioner comments?
I would just like to give a shout out to Amanda, who just spoke during public comment. She has a huge job on her hands as well. I can't remember the statistics right off the top of my head, but go to their Facebook page, read what they do in the community. And it's not just Charlotte, it's Eaton County. Hundreds and thousands of pounds of food every year, every month. The need is only getting stronger. If any of you are ever in the area Tuesday through Thursday, or I'm sure she'd make an appointment with you commissioner-wise, go do a tour. You will be shocked. It's phenomenal. It's just set up like a little warehouse, and they do a great thing over there. So thank you, Amanda, for all you do as well.
Just wanted on a personal note to welcome the two newest commissioners and thank you for what you added to the discussion tonight.
Anybody else? Yes, I would echo my colleagues' statements there, both in support of all the great work helping at Helping Hands, and thank you for all that you do for our community, and welcoming our two new commissioners. We got a full crew again, and that's great. Great to have representation from so many interested citizens in Charlotte, and thank you again. Thank you to the entire commission for your work, not just tonight, but from the very top. I know we're not quite done yet. We're moving it towards the finish line. But this is obviously a huge undertaking, and one that I think is going to be a real benefit for the city of Charlotte. So thank you to all your work, from the committees, to the meetings, to the work session, to everything that we did tonight to get this zoning ordinance approved. I look forward to the day when I can see that on the city website as being part of our actual ordinance in force. If there is no other comments by anyone on the commission or anyone by staff, then I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Support. Whatever.
All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Planning Commission stands adjourned. Thank you.